Welcome back to Carneades.org. Today we're going to be continuing with our series, Dumbfounding Definitions, Dizzying Distinctions, and Diabolical Doctrines, a series sorting through some of the jargon of philosophy. In this video we're going to be looking at what is pessimism. Now, in a previous video we looked at what is optimism, specifically philosophical optimism. Check that out if you're interested. Frequently, optimism and pessimism are thought of as general dispositions, not deeply held philosophical positions. In a previous video, we looked at the philosophical position of optimism. In this video, we're going to cover something along the lines of the philosophical position of pessimism. In the colloquial context, a pessimist is someone that sees the world in the worst possible way, that sees the worst things in the world, that sees the glass as half empty. The works of philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer embody this pessimism. For Schopenhauer and philosophical pessimists, the world is so horrible that were it to be any worse, it would devolve into chaos. Now, according to Schopenhauer, the world is in its very nature chaotic and painful. The only good or order in the world is a feeble and inevitably doomed creation of humans. That we as humans attempt to bring some amount of order or sense to a world that is inherently chaotic and impossible to control. The world cannot be divided into separate, understandable objects, and no matter how much we try to know or gain knowledge about the world, we are inevitably doomed to completely be unable to understand it or represent it in any important way. Rather, the world is a driving will, which when humans try to understand and separate it into comprehensible pieces, will inevitably tear itself apart again and revert to incomprehensible chaos. The world does not merely defy sensible understanding under Schopenhauer's view. It is made of suffering as well. Pain outpaces pleasure throughout the world. This first-person experiential view of extensive suffering leads Schopenhauer to conclude that the world is the kind of thing which will always make us want that which we cannot have. And it will inevitably pit us against each other in order to get those things that we want but cannot have. Basically, not only can we not fully understand the world, we're inevitably going to suffer and be frustrated by not being able to get the things that we want. You thought you were a pessimist. Schopenhauer's view is that the world is in such a way that you'll never understand it, you'll never be happy, and you'll never be able to get the things you want. Yet you will continuously fight with those around you for those things that you want. As a skeptic, I'm sympathetic to some of the ideas that we may not be able to understand the world, and that the boxes that we put things in are arbitrary at best. However, as a Pyrrhonian skeptic, I'm hesitant to conclude that the world is in principle incomprehensible just because we have yet to comprehend it. Additionally, in terms of the questions on pain and suffering as opposed to pleasure, I'm not convinced that the world is really as bad as Schopenhauer claims. I have addressed some of the arguments around the imbalance of pain and pleasure in another video on David Benatar's arguments on the subject, which are very interesting. Check out my video on the Pollyanna principle for more on that. But needless to say, I'm skeptical that we can absolutely conclude that there's always going to be more pain than pleasure, that we're never going to get any of the things that we want, that our desires are always going to be frustrated, and that we're never going to be able to know anything. Because I'm a Pyrrhonian skeptic, not an academic skeptic. I'm not convinced of the fact that we can't know things. I just haven't found anything yet that looks like knowledge. What do you think? Is the world nothing but suffering? Can we really understand the world? Or are our attempts self-defeating, as the world is inherently a chaotic will that defies individuation? Leave your thoughts in the comments below and watch this video and more here at Carneades.org, and stay skeptical, everybody.